make him welcome. He didn't have too much challenge in finding Faith Temple. He found it. And with Mr. Mackenzie is Mrs. Peter Gale Sterling. The Sterlings, if they come later on, can check to see if there's a relationship between this Sterling and this. No, you don't think? Oh, Sterling, yes, man. So it's still related. Or you can say marriage, but it's still related. Who tell you that? And I don't know the spelling name correctly. I didn't think they do. D-E-M-A. D-A-M-A-R-A-H, Damara. I pronounced it correctly though. All right. So Miss Damara Nelson and Mr. Winston Hines. So I know you shake your hand at them. Could you stand and turn around? They can see your faces, please. And I must say thanks because I know that the public defender herself would have to approve and give authorization for the team to come to St. James. And we want to express our appreciation and gratitude to her. There should be a fifth person, but he decided to go on vacation, Mr. David Clark. So you must tell him that I call his name tonight also and today, right? But he had to go off. He lives in St. James, in Trelawney really, and work in St. James. And so he's at our fingertip when we need him. But I trust, ladies and gentlemen, team, that this will be the beginning of a lasting relationship between the Office of the Public Defender, the Office of the Custos, and Faith Temple. We're looking for great things. We deem it important that every opportunity that we get to educate our parents, that we are going to make the best of it. As I shared this morning, parenting is not something that you go to school to learn. You learn by hard knocks. You become a parent, and then you start to learn how to parent your child. And you make mistakes, and you correct yourself. You stumble, and you catch up. You stumble, and you fall. But you don't stay down. You get up. And if you have more than one child, you find that they all have different personalities. 7 brothers, 7 minds, and I share that I have 5 kids, and they grew up here with you, so you know that they're all 7 with 7 different minds and 7 different personalities, and it is the same for you also. And some of you, like myself, have become grandparents, and there may be 1 or 2 here that are great-grandparents. But some of the things, Mr. Mackenzie, that I benefited from when I was a child is almost absent from today's society, and that is the extended family. Mother, and in some cases father. Well, I'm a single mom, was my parent, but I had a grandfather and a grandmother who raised me like the last son in the home. So I had the benefit of a family life. And then there were uncles and aunts, even though some never lived at home, but they're always around. And that is so absent. And young people are doing it all by themselves. And I don't know that we're doing a good job of it. But I thank God for those of you, and I'm looking around and I see a few fathers, and I feel good. I hope some others will come, Clive, before the evening is over. I see a good, yes, they are coming. Yes, because it's important. You know my stand. No female can have a child all by herself. Takes a man and a woman to produce a child. And so, without any further ado, I would love to welcome Mr. Herbert, I am saying Herbie, Mr. Herbie Mackenzie to the podium, and he will take it from here. Don't wait until the end. I put Q&A, but he loves an interactive group. As he go along and discuss, he wants you to ask questions so that you don't have a boring session of him just coming at you with a monologue, but ask questions. So let's have a very lively session. God bless you. Herbie, over to you.
Mrs. Peter is here with me. Mrs. Peter Gale is here with me, and she just wants to say a few words.
Hi, good night, everyone. It's night, right? Yeah. Good night, everyone, and welcome all. The OPD consider it a distinct pleasure to share with you this moment in which we will reason about some of the laws which touch and concern you directly as parents. I would like to acknowledge Honorable Conrad Pitkin, Costas Rotolorum, and all our guests and attendees. This is not an academic presentation, but rather an occasion for sharing knowledge and perspectives. Hopefully in the process, you will get to know the OPD better, and the OPD will get the chance to acquaint you with its roles and functions. The presentation should not be long, and we expect you to ask questions and engage with the presenter at any stage of the presentation. And we all know that our presenter this evening is Mr. Herbert Mackenzie, which Costas already introduced. And along with him, Peter Gale, myself, Mr. Mara Nelson, and Mr. Winston Hines. I will now turn over to Mr. Mackenzie, who will discuss with you the topic, parenting under the law. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Costas. Thank you, Peter Gale. You turned over to me twice, the whole heap of turnover. Well, that's how it is. All right. What we come here to do this evening is to share with you and to reason with you. We did not come here to lecture you or to push anything down your throat. We come here to talk to you about some aspects of the law, which even though they apply to everybody, in our day-to-day life, it's either we take them for granted, or we probably did not realize that these things were embedded in law, or we really did not know, or in some cases we just did not remember. So what we are here to do is to just reason with you on those aspects of the law which touch and concern you as parents in an immediate way. Now, as Costas said, and Mrs. Sterling repeated, please be at liberty to stop me at any stage of our reasoning and ask any question you want. The only foolish question you can have is the one that you do not ask. Every question is of value. You don't know everything, I don't know everything, none of my colleagues here know everything. It's all about sharing. Now, as parents, when you have a child which is born onto you, when I say parents know a child born onto you, I'm referring to both the mother and the father. And if you are grandparents or great-grandparents, as Costas alluded to, the argument applies to you just the same. Because if you are any of those categories, it therefore means that at some stage in life you are a parent. It goes without saying. Now, when this new baby is born and you leave the hospital with the baby, you didn't leave the hospital with a manual. It is a job you have in which you get the job before you learn how to do it. Can you imagine going for a job interview, you know about the job interview, and they're showing you the job, and if they're showing you the job, it's that time people start telling you, figure out how you do it. That's why a child rearing is. You learn as you go along. It's a classic on-the-job training. And you get knowledge from your family members, your friends, other parents, other mothers, other fathers, and so you learn as you go along. Because this little human being, weighing 8 pounds or whatever amount of weight it is your sole and exclusive responsibility for the next 18 years of her life or his life. And you are responsible all throughout those years for his or her doing. And in some cases, it might go, as you see, as you'll see in the presentation, beyond the 18 years. Now, like I say, since you are parents, and when I say parents, I mean both grandparents and parents, there must be child or children. The starting point for any law to do with parenting is really supreme law of the land, refer to it as the Constitution. And everybody talk about every day, you breach my constitutional rights, my right to this. Some of us seem to have more rights than sons are on the seashore. But children have rights like everybody else, and their rights are almost innumerable. Now, the Constitution states, and I'm going to read it for those who can't see the chart. Every child, and what I say now, every child has the right to such measures of protection as are required by virtue of their status of being a minor, or as a part of a family, or a part of society, or as a part of the state meaning the country of Jamaica. And you heard Costas dwell quite a bit on how the family or the child is raised by the community and the benefits you derive from having a child raised by the community rather than the individual parent. In not even a nuclear family, because the extended family no longer exists. Not even a nuclear family, it's almost like the solo family, in some cases the child growing him or herself. Now, the Constitution also says that every child who is a citizen of Jamaica, remember now it's moving from the general, every child, to the particular, every child who is a citizen of Jamaica, has a right to publicly funded tuition at a public educational institution at pre-primary and primary levels. And those words have meaning. It have meaning because I always say, in short, what it says is at the primary and pre-primary level, you have a right to free education. They didn't say free, but education at public expense. That's what you know it as. What it therefore means is that you can't take my bright child and carry him go to prep school and stand with your placard and say, take my child and educate him or her. Because guess what? The prep school is not a public funded institution. Private school, you have to dig deep in your pocket and fork out the tuition fee per term, per semester, whatever it is. So the right is a right to the education at primary and pre-primary level. And we'll see what those two levels are as we go along. And at a publicly funded institution. And that seems simple. So that's the Constitution. The Constitution sets up that right for every child. And we say it because that right, while it endures to the benefit of a child, by virtue of a child being a minor, is exercisable by you. And it casts the obligation upon you, the parent. Who is the parent? Obviously you, the biological parent, of whom the child is the offspring. But it doesn't stop there. It can be an aunt, uncle, brother, of age of maturity, of course. When it's age of maturity, age over 18. Or anybody who exercises guardianship status over that child. Family could have been gone overseas, gone elsewhere, and in some cases the family could have perished naturally. And you end up with this under 18-year-old, so you become the parent in the eyes of the law. Now, being parents, obviously, as we say, there's child or there are children. In 1979, or certainly up to 1979, and those who were mature or alive before then would have known that you only attain adulthood when you hit the age of 21. So for people who can remember, you couldn't vote before you reached 21. Everything to do with adulthood is 21. Well, in that year, 1979, there's a piece of law they call the Age of Majority Act that changed all of that and brought the age down from 21 to 18. So 18 now, you're an adult, you can sign contract, you can marry, you can do everything, and you can hang. If you commit a crime or murder, they can hang you. So, and I suppose those who don't believe in capital punishment, that is fine, but what the law is, although it has never been exercised. So the age of adulthood is 18 years old in this country. However, as you'll see going forward, different laws, and in Jamaica we call it acts, legislation, statutes, make the age of a child different years. But what is common among them is that none of those put the child anything other than 18. So you'll see, for example, under the Education Act, the child is a person who has not yet attained the age of 15 years. Under the Juveniles Act, you'll see they say a child is under 14, the juvenile is under 17, the young person was a person who has attained the age of 14, but still under 17. And under the Early Childhood Commission Act, the person is a child, the child is a person under 9 years of age. Under the Domestic Violence Act, the child is a person under 18 who has never been married. And we'll see the significance of that later down in the presentation. Under the law that deal with sex and other offenses of that type, child is under the age of 18 years. The common thread in all of this is that every one of them who defines child as a person with an age below 18. And of course, it's defined in those terms for the purpose of the law that covers it. Sorry? You're not hearing me? Oh, there's a roving microphone here. You could pass it to Ms. Hines, pass it to her. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Oh, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Sir, I have a burning, vexing question. And I still cannot understand it. We say a child is under the age of 18. So if a child is 17 years and tomorrow the child will be 18, something happens to the child, no, it's still a child. So I'm still not understanding the fact that a child at 16 can have free sexual consent to go out there and have sex, get pregnant, become a mother, but the child is still a minor adult, I don't know if you call that.
Yeah.
And if something happens to that child, you are still responsible for the child.
Yeah.
So, is that law going to be changed in the future, sir? I think it is just. But it really bothers my spirit.
It's boggling. It boggles everybody's mind. But your concern is a concern that is shared by many, many, many people.
So it needs to be changed.
It needs to be changed. Right, let's look at it. We're going to touch it further on. But since you raised it, let's look at it. You can vote at 18. You're married at 18. You can sign contract at 18. And if the court finds you guilty of murder, they can hang you at 18. Right? But you can marry at 16 with consent. You can give consent to sex at 16. At the same time, at that age, you as a parent still have to provide food, shelter, and clothing. You see the point? But that is what the law is. So like I said, to every group I talk to, and I know that is going to come because every group has the same concern. Any right-thinking mind person must have that concern. This is what I would say to you when you approach it, and I say to every group. You say in the next 18 months, because election is constitutional due by 2025, and we know what's up election time. The people who are vying for your affection and want your vote to put them in Garden House in Kingston come to you and make you all sorts of promises. For example, they're going to make a factory. When they come tell you that piece of rubbish, you sit them around and say, no man, forget the factory because you can't make factory. Private sector make factory. Come in this town hall and tell me now how you're going to reconcile these age discrepancies in the law. You are our representative. Why you go to Parliament and lobby to change the law to take out the 16, 18, 15 and make one law? You can't have me as your constituents paying you $20 million salary and then you have me take me here like me born back a cow. Go to Parliament and change the law and don't let a 16-year-old who have to clothe, feed and shelter be able to go out there and have sex. Have sex and get pregnant and come in and still responsible for she or he, as the case is now, and the children. So that is what your approach should be. Get it to your parliamentarian who come down here and promise you these sort of absolute rubbish things that they can't deliver and will never deliver. You see the point I'm making? Your concern is valid. Everybody says it. We share that too. Imagine you're a mother working hard for this little girl. From date of birth, come right up. At 16, whoops, she come in with belly. You can't turn her out. You have to close her and feed her. And she can't vote. You have to close her and feed her, but yet she can't give consent to sex. Which is the greater responsibility? The responsibility of motherhood or the responsibility of casting an ex every 5 years? Something you need to raise with the parliamentarian. It's important, it's crucial. We started with the Constitution, and we say what the Constitution is with respect to the rights of the child. It is the supreme law. Those rights and obligations that the Constitution provides are operationalized in a piece of law or statute. They call it Child Care and Protection Act. The Constitution makes the general sweeping rights be available to us. But this piece of law brings it into operation and tells you what is not and what is. Now, it is the piece of law, or the law is called the legislation, that establishes what is called the Office of the Children's Advocate. That office is a commission of parliament, like the public defender, with responsibility for children's rights and children's issues. And it is responsible to provide legal representation for children who are in court and without lawyers. And even the child, as parents who can afford a lawyer and they get a lawyer for the child, the children's advocate still has a right to be in court, to be there present. It also has oversight responsibility or oversight jurisdiction for the entity they call it Child Development Agency, CDA. Recently they renamed it to CPFSA, Child Protection and Family Service Agencies. The very same place, same thing, same place it occurs, it's located rather, the same people in it. So if you call it CDA, you're referring to the same thing. It exercises supervisor's jurisdiction over the CDA. And that law recognizes adulthood as 18 years old. Now, under the Child Care and Protection Act, the core responsibility of it is thrust upon adults, and it sets up a provision that makes a child in need of care and protection when certain state of affairs exist, are deemed to exist. And here are some examples of situations which exist, which the law deems the child to be in need of care and protection. If the child have no parent or guardian, or the child may have parent or guardian, but they are unfit to exercise care and guardianship, thereby allowing the child to fall into bad company, the child to be exposed to moral danger or harm, or put the child in a position where the child cannot function as a child. Child is also deemed to be in need of care and protection if the child is being cared for in circumstances where the child's physical health or emotional state is being impaired or is being jeopardized. It is not an exhaustive list, but here are some others which I've mentioned. The child is in need of care and protection if the child is a child against which a particular type of offense has been committed or an attempt to commit it has been made. And the law specifies those offenses, the serious offenses: rape, murder, serious assault, serious sexual assault. Now, that child in that household, if there exists or there is living in that household other children underage, the fact that that offense has been committed upon one child, the law deems the other children of that household to be similarly in need of care and protection. In the same way, if a member of the household has been convicted of one of these serious offenses and then come back to take up habitation or living in that household, the law says, simply by dint of that person coming back to the house, the child or the children in that house are in need of care and protection. So for example, you have even your husband, your big brother, your uncle, your big cousin, charged for murder, go to prison, spend 20, 30 odd years and come back and live in that house. By virtue of that conviction, if he comes back to live there, the law says that child or the children of that household are in need of care and protection. And having said that, the law casts a burden upon you, parents, neighbors, and everybody in the community to report it. And if you don't report it, you are liable for a criminal offense, which can attract a penalty of $500,000 or 6 months imprisonment or both. What the law says, is that any person who has information that causes you, the person, to suspect, it's a suspect, not to know that a child is in need of care of protection or the child is being sexually ill-treated, neglected, or abandoned, must make a report to the children registry. You notice? You don't have to know, You have to have information that raises a suspicion in your mind. You're obliged to report it. If you can't report it to the children registry, which is at CDA, you can report it to the police, you can report it to SOCA, you can report to the Office of the Children's Advocate, and you can report to the Office of the Public Defender. So there's no shortage of places to which you can report it. Now, let it not be said that you didn't report it and you know about it. Because when the hotter claps come and people find out, say, but the neighbor, everybody beside him, they don't hear this, I go on, don't know which I go on. Let it not be said that you, who live next door, every peep you open your curtain, you can't say, well, I go on next door, did nothing about it. Nobody can haul you up to court to pay $500,000 or to send them to prison for 6 months because you report it. Somebody may not have done what they have supposed to be done. The children's registry, the advocate, children's advocate, or the police, but you'd have reported it. And you know these things. Because, for example, you hear like a picnic at the house, a ball whole night, 24/7, pick the ball, pick the ball, pick the ball, pick the ball, till pick the horse. And you as a mother hear it. It must raise a concern in you. You hear a parent over there, beat the hell out of the picnic. You can't know, you can pick the fly out half naked with the wheel all over him and pick the ball, and the parents run in and drag him by the collar, by the waist, and hear liquor fling. We are Jamaicans, we know these things, the signs are there. The law casts a duty upon you. It makes a criminal offense for you to have that information and not report it to anybody else. Yes, sir. There's a mic, the roving mic.
Yes, good evening again.
Yes, sir.
A lot of times, we are cognizant of the fact that these things are happening. But however, people are fear for their lives so much. And we know that. I think that the government should put something in place to protect people when they go to the station or anywhere they go, to tell them about something that happened close by, especially when somebody, with these kind of situations, knowing that somebody is being abused or, something wrong in a family and they are neighbors. People are so fearful because of what's going on now. They would like to, but sometimes when you go and talk about these things, there's always somebody next door or a friend or somebody say, well, you don't know, see, John Tom went do this. Later on, they say, well, I got them. And we know that. We would like to do yes, but what is the government doing to protect you when you go in and tell all these things?
That's a good point. But you shouldn't allow the failure of the government to put you in an armored room to prevent you from reporting it. You don't have to go to the police, and if you don't trust the police, go to the police. Call the public defender office. We can get information to who it's supposed to get to. The most thing can is come burn down the building, but you can't burn down the public defender office. It's an institution. Those of us survive just move to another location. And in some of the cases too, You fail to report it, the same violence producer or the abuser may eventually turn upon you even though you don't report it. Remember, you know, the little phrase, they come for your neighbor, you hear it and you do nothing. So your neighbor gone. They come for your neighbor to your left, you hear it and you do nothing. And so they come for everybody and you do nothing. When they come for you, nobody's there to say anything because guess what? When they take everybody else, you remain quiet. In this very parish and capital, Sam Sharp died so all of us can be here. Although it happened centuries ago. You think if you never had people like Sam Sharp, me and you as black people could stand up here, stand here in condition and talk on microphone, we probably would still be in slavery. So my brother, don't let the fact that you have policemen who will go back and rat on you, or the government doesn't provide any immediate protection for you, prevent you from reporting it. Reporting it, there are many outlets. Office of the Citizens Advocate, and if you don't want to go to the police, just don't go. Come to the Office of the Public Defender. We have no qualms in writing to the Commissioner of the Police, give the address and everything, so that they can go where this is happening. Don't let that deter you. Now, one of the most blatant evidence of a child being in need of care and protection, apart from what you might observe across the fence or see in your community, is those you see come to your car window at the street begging. Begging, these like 9, 10-year-old boys, and in some cases probably girls too, but in Kingston mainly boys. The parents for those children who are out on the street begging are themselves committing a criminal offense. In some cases, the parents send them out to go hustle lunch money or to go hustle money for dinner for the rest of the household. It is unlawful, it should not happen. And while you as parent, as that adult who sees that the most definitive piece of information you can give to the authorities is the location where it happens. You can't go any higher with that because you don't know the name. All you see is these little boys or girls, so just the location. Report it just the same way. Report it nonetheless. But you know, like I say, you don't have to see them at the roadside begging. You see them every day. It happens every day right around you in the house, in the neighborhood. And a failure to report it, see child begging or child abandoned, that itself can attract a $250,000 fine or 3 months imprisonment. I see a question again. Let's have it.
All right, I understand what you're saying, you know. We see these kids daily on the road. There are so many officers on the road patrolling every day. And I know they saw these kids.
Of course.
So why can't, I mean, you have to go back to government again because they are the one that makes the laws and rules to govern us. So what I'm saying, all these kids that they saw on the road daily, why don't they find some institution or find out of a group or a body of persons that they put together to go out on the street, find out where these kids are from, what they are doing on the road, why they're not going to school, and then they can move forward. Because if you just see them on the road and see these kids, nobody do nothing, nobody's not asking where they're from, what they're doing, or they're not going to school, they're still going to be on the road. So they have to put something in place to get these kids off the road and find out what their parents are doing, why they're on the road, why they're not going to school, where do they live, and what they can do to help. If they don't do that, then they're going to be still on the road every day, wiping car glass. I mean, I see like 9, 10-year-old kids, you know, on the road. I come from work daily, seeing them with sweetie box. Some parents have a little baby in his hand, and then him have a lot of 5-year-olds beside him. I mean, and police, I mean, I know that the police saw them daily, going past, but they don't ask them, what are you doing on the road? This time of the day, you should be in school, you know. So if they don't put all those things in place, trust me, you know, we're going to go right back to square one.
Excellent point. But I would take it further than that. The police shouldn't shouldn't do it. Police should take them up and say, tell me where your parents and carry them to the parents. And when you carry them to the parents, they take the parents in custody and charge the parents. Because the parents have caused the children to be in need of care and protection. And that's true, good point to make. And the only thing I can say because of irresponsibility or lack of resources, because you carry them to the one second, let me just finish the point. Carry them to the parents' house and you lock up the parents. In fact, some members of society can demonstrate, how police boy can't take him out of the yard and lock him up and he don't do nothing. Yeah, this is the part we have in our culture. Because the police can't put them in a cell. Even when we're charged with criminal offense, they can't put them in a cell with big hardback criminal. And how many stations have accommodation there to, say, 6, like a 10, 12-year-old boy when they are there? So it's beyond the police now. The things like the Child Development Agency, the same one who called CPFSA, Child Protection and Family Service Agency, must have facilities in each parish, in each jurisdiction, to say these children which are technically abandoned must be taken off the road and put on this place until we start them out before the court. Take them from the parents and make them a ward of the state. In addition to that, I just want to raise a point with you. Not every mother is standing out here with a baby in their hand is a good cause. You have a thing in kids called rent a baby. Them rent the baby, and the person who rent the baby is just as bad as the renter. Pay them money and they use the baby as a measure to evoke sympathy of people and get money. So it's a cause for concern, but don't take it at face value all the while. The mother is out there begging because she's an adult. You can't charge her for begging. Adult begging is not a crime. You need to get her into some female shelter, and in that process you can find out that the baby business is a fraud. Get the baby from her if the baby is not her, find out who the baby belongs to, and charge the woman who rent her the baby if it's not genuine. You, sir.
Good evening again. Well, like what Brother Clive said, I would buy that. The reason why you touch the case, you touch a valid point about parents. That's what I say at all times. They must have a parents that they have a guardian. I understand somebody who is responsible, but they take up that thing as like it's a job to out there on a daily basis. Understand? So first and foremost, you held on to any one of them. Take them to the parents. Parents must be responsible. Understand? If they know, to me, I always say, if me hold them and bring them to the parents, they creep out the parents and I take him some areas to the police or whatever. They must hold their child responsible, man. You understand? Trust me, I understand the foolishness.
I agree with you.
The kids out there have attitude. All right, and I come right out KFC, yes, sir. Or by the Kentucky, yes, sir. You know? And when I look at you come on, I know wipe my glass. I say the glass clean, even though you wipe it still. Understand? So deep down and I take up, I take $50 I go give me a silver. He said, if I silver, I can't take that. You know, and that. So what you tell me now, sir? He said, me a work. Understand? So I don't like that. Parents must be responsible for their kids. Because a lot of things they're doing out on the street. Understand? Yeah, I say, if me am part of government, I'm create them up. All the parents me create, no mind all the house me create up. Yeah, to be honest, I'm telling you.
Yeah, I understand how you feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
They must put a stop into that, man.
Yeah, he's right.
One lady come in and they wipe the glass and she said they want to wipe, spray the water in the lady's face. That's rude.
Very.
You understand? I don't buy those things.
Because the way have been brought up. Look at us here. I don't think any of us here is rich. I'm not rich. I don't think the Costas is rotten rich. Maybe rich, but not rotten so. And any of us, we have any of our children, or had any of our children on the road begging our washing windshield? No, we haven't. We haven't. And we won't. Because guess what? We know the value of parenthood and the responsibility of being a parent and what it is to inculcate values in a child. Because remember, whether or not you like it, once you become a parent and a grandparent, what you're actually doing, you're growing the next generation. You're preparing the next generation. Because there come a time we're granted 70. And if by the grace of God we get more, we have to give him the glory. So after you do that, It's on your way out. It's those children that you have parented, fathered, and mothered that is taking over from the next generation. And the values you put in them, those are the values that they'll inculcate in their children, which is the next generation. And it's because of things like this why we have this perpetual situation of children begging and wiping mirrors. Because guess what? Children themselves are becoming children. And it may very well go back to the point my sister raised. Because you're at 16, you can't give sex. So become a mother at 16 when you yourself are a child. You see the point? I have a question from sister.
Good evening. I have a question. My question is, have you ever had a situation where children in state care are being abused in any shape or form? And if yes, how does the respective body handle such a situation?
Good point to raise. It has happened in the past and it has happened recently. You remember, could have been late last year, earlier this year. The same thing you call CDA, now called CPFSA. They had an American pedophile working with children at one of the children's home, and the head, her name is Miss Gage, the head of the CPFSA, government asked her to leave. I hope this answers your question. It turned out that the Office of the Children's Advocate, that Commissioner of Parliament, which I mentioned at the top of the presentation, who had oversight jurisdiction over the CPFSA, did an investigation and find out that this certified pedophile from America was interacting with children in the children's home, contrary to instructions to cease and desist. Came to us, an American was providing service. It came to the authorities by way of information through the US Embassy that this man in his home country is restricted from having any dealings with children. He is a registered pedophile. Be careful. That information, having reached Jamaican authorities, was communicated to relevant entities, agencies, and bodies, and was told to the CPFSA, look, cease and desist. But they didn't. And the Office of the Children's Advocate did an investigation which bore out that he was having improper communication and improper contact with children, female children in the children's home. And they decided prompt action had to be taken, and they fired her. Now, that is probably one instance. We have other instances where the care was so poor that the place caught fire and children perished in the fire. Remember, you heard about the Armadale incident? So yes, it does happen, and it's out of that, I think it's the Armadale incident, where the Office of Children's Advocate came into being to exercise supervisor's jurisdiction over the agencies that have responsibility for children. So, good point to raise. It has happened in the past, and that's the action that the government takes.
Yes, but if a situation like that takes place in the homes, the government step in and they step in with the law and all of that, and the person pays the penalty, whether the parents or the guardian pays the penalty.
Yeah.
So what's the difference with these persons? Why are they just fired? Or tell me, are they just fired and that ends it all? They're gonna take the trouble somewhere else.
I agree with you, but of course, you know, me not being a part of government can't tell you why they're not charged. Personally speaking, I think they should be criminally charged and convicted for negligence. My view, I share it with you. Yeah, well, in that case, she didn't lose her benefits and pension. Some people should, because she had a $10 million package, a separation going home with. But this is how the country is, and we need a lot more to be done in this country to bring the way we look after our children up to internationally accepted standards.
Yes. Good night and good evening, everyone. In retrospect to the same issue a while ago with that person, there was a mother also stated in the same case that had sent her daughter to his house in the night, and that's where the exposing started from. And the way it was covered up, I think that parent should have been charged alongside with him for letting her little daughter go to his house in the night.
To a man who was sexually abusing her?
Yes.
Yes.
Because it came out in the papers.
But
But the way it came out, if you don't search, you wouldn't see it.
yeah.
Because based on the fact that that individual used his strength of cash in the agency by donating this and this and this to cover up his dirty acts, that's why it was not exposed wider to the country that a lot of us could know about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Based on what happened, that's why it comes. But
Yeah.
I think that even in the town of Montego Bay, you have parents sit out by Kentucky, over by Fairview. The mother is there, and she has 3 girls and 2 boys, and she send them to beg individuals at the cars, right?
In broad daylight.
In broad daylight. And I see the police see those things, and they do nothing about it. It happens at Kentucky at Old Cook, and it happens at Fairview, because I witnessed that for myself. So I can say of those 2 areas that I have seen. And the police is there patrolling and not paying an eye to that. But if he sees a taxi man stop illegal or stuff, him
Yes.
down there, him
Yeah,
forget something.
misplaced priorities, eh?
Understand that.
Yeah,
So, you know,
yeah.
we have a hard task to get things straight and to be done in the right and proper way, because the law who is supposed to be defending us isn't looking at us. Thank you.
Yes. And don't you have a, I think CPFSA, don't they have an office in Montego Bay, Western office? They do. How big is it? Oh, it's at the family court. So you don't know how many staff members are in it. It means they're not exactly doing what they're supposed to do, because if you can see these big adults over there dispatching the children to go and beg, that is something they should be able to go and see themselves and take the necessary action. Yes, sister.
Good evening. The age of consent, we say 16.
The age of consent for sexual intercourse.
Is 16.
Yes.
So at what age can a man be charged for statutory rape?
Okay. All right. Statutory rape is really an American concept, but we know what it means. Let me tell you. A man can charge for what you call statutory rape if the girl or the female with whom he has sexual intercourse is under the age of 16.
Oh, under 16.
Under the age of 16.
That
You-
is what I wasn't sure
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. If after your 16th birthday, midnight your 16th birthday, 12 past, 1 past midnight, you can give consent to sex. If the man have sex with you before you reach 16, that's sexual intercourse with a person under the age of 16. Under the age of 16. So 16 is the age of consent. Once you're under 16, you can't give consent. All right, we're on the business of children. Parents, bear that in mind upon the board. No child under the age of 12 years can be guilty of a criminal offense. That's what the law says. It is now cemented. What that means that in some countries, no child under the age of 12 years old, under the age of 12 years old can be guilty of a criminal offense. So if your child will take out a licensed firearm and go and shoot anybody, the liability will be visited upon you. That's an irrebuttable and conclusive position of law. You can't be liable for a criminal offense if you're under 12 years old. Bear that in mind. And like I say, it's important for people with gun owners and people who have big dog. You look a boy set your big dog upon people and then go bite them up. Him can't be liable for the criminal offense. Because you know dog attack now is a criminal offense. You don't just go pay a suing money and walk out. Now, another responsibility of the parents based upon the constitutional rights of children is that you are under a duty bound by law to ensure that the child in a compulsory education zone receive full-time education suitable to his or her age. And we'll come to that when we talk about primary and pre-primary. Remember now, in the school zone, once the child is pre-primary or primary age, you, the parent, is under duty to ensure that children go to school. You don't do it, you commit a criminal offense. Sadly, the fine for that is so small it's almost insulting. $1 for first offense, $4 for second offense, and for third and other offenses, a mere $10, one silver money, or 14 days imprisonment or both. Remember in the beginning I told you that if 2 people is going to be coming, at least 2 will come here in the next 18 months to want to talk to you. They might not come to this, but they might have, what do you call it, big jump up and down, either orange color label or green label somewhere in the town center with big mic and big dance. That's not what you want. When all of that is done or before, bring them here or bring them to the town center. I ask them questions like these. Why when people commit this offense, he can take out a silver coin out and pocket? In fact, he not have to take it out because silver coin everywhere. He can just pick it up off of the courtroom floor and pay it and walk out, almost contemptuously. So those are things you must bear in mind as adults. The gravamen of the matter is that the right to education, what inures in the child, cast upon you a burden to enforce that right, to get the child to school, or get the children to school, as the case may be. Now, under the education law, we know that the person, based on the law, is regarded as a child if the person is under the age of 15 years. The pre-primary education refers to students who at the time of entry into the pre-primary level, they have not yet attained the age of 6 years. So they are the little ones who start school and go to the basic school. And the primary education now refers to full-time education suitable to the requirements of students who are not over 12 years. And it is those 2 categories that the law says, the Constitution says, is a right to the citizens, the children who are citizens of Jamaica. And by virtue of that right, you are under duty to ensure that they go to this school, publicly funded education school, and if you fail to do so, you fail at your own peril. Now, the Sexual Offences Act, which has the age of child as under 18 years, has a curious element to it. What that new law did was to introduce some new offenses and to make stiffer penalty for other offenses. Now, some of the new offenses it include, I put up in the chart for you, one called grievous sexual assault, sexual grooming, sexual touching, and marital rape. We'll talk about marital rape later. But this new act, this new piece of law, makes sexual intercourse with a person under the age of 18 gender neutral. Prior to the coming of this law, sexual intercourse, what our sister calls statutory rape, coined in different language, was gender specific. It had to do with a female victim and the perpetrator must be a male. So in other words, if the girl is under 16, a male person has sexual intercourse with her, then that male person is the only person who can be guilty of statutory rape, or as the old law call it, carnal abuse. Now this law changed it. There can be a male victim. Because in some cases, even though some of us might not want to believe it, when 2 little teenagers decide to get into the hanky-panky business, sometimes the female is just as guilty, or sometimes is the instigator. The law recognizes that, and the female can now be charged for sexual intercourse with a person under the age of 16. No longer law says with a female under the age of 16. The law says a person under the age of 16 years old. So bear that in mind. So mothers, when you hear that your daughter is a victim for sexual intercourse with a person under the age of 16, don't assume that there's a halo over her head and the little teenage boy with whom she gets involved in this hanky-panky is the demon in person. Not always so. Listen and observe, and don't go and cuss and fight the other parent and tell the other parent how his son is an animal, he not brought up and all of that. The law is neutral on that. Completely neutral. Now, under the old law, there were two categories of what they call carnal abuse. Carnal abuse when the girl was under 12, and carnal abuse when the girl was under 16. There's no distinction now in the new law, the Sexual Offences Act. Once you're under 16, person has intercourse with you, then the person is liable, be it male or female. And now, let me just touch on a little bit of this. For sexual intercourse with a person under the age of 16, the offender has a complete defense if he's under 23 and meets some other requirements. They call it the young person defense. Now, understand that in Jamaica, the dominant or the paramount sexual offense is rape. And in Jamaica, rape is gender specific. Let me say it again. Rape is gender specific. Sexual intercourse with a person under the age of 16 is gender neutral. What I'm saying is that for rape, only a man can rape a woman. Only a woman can get raped. For sexual intercourse with a person under 16, the victim can be any gender. See the point? Now, because the paramount offense is rape and sexual intercourse with a person under 16, if it is committed by a male, the law gives the male, if he's under 23, a defense which he can use to avoid conviction. And obviously, it has three elements to it. I'm telling you this, because you're a parent of girl children, and you may see a boy who is alleged to have had sexual intercourse with an under 16 girl walk out of court, and you wonder. And you all say, I hope your man, the mother go, he go in all sort of thing, and the lawyer all thief, and then plot up against me that. No. If the boy is under 23, and he satisfies the three conditions, A, under 23, B, he has never been charged before, and we have reasonable cause to believe that the girl is over 16, will him get off scot-free? The court let him go. And all three are easy to prove, How you prove your age? You draw for your original birth certificate. How you prove that you've never been convicted? You get the police to do the police report. And the police report shows you have no criminal, you've never been charged, you have no criminal records. How you prove that you really reasonably believe that she was over 23? Most of them tell the men that they are 17. And when you look up at their social media, they have themselves in some tight up clothes and show them over 16. Boy, look at her, she might have breast, hip, and all the attributes of a mature female. And the court said, no, man, I reasonably believe that she's over 16. In fact, I can tell you, most of the time when the boys are charged, the first thing the defense lawyer run to is go to the girl's social media handle. Almost always. There are pictures up there, posting up there, in body rider, printer, all sort of skimpy thing, skinning out, and age 17, age 18. Almost always. You don't have to take it from me. Do some homework yourself, and you'll see that Mackenzie is not telling any lie. The point I'm making, because you have children, boys and girls, be careful. The child in your house is an angel, is not necessarily the same angel with the halo over his or her head when he or she's out there with her contemporaries. And sometimes they roll with a crowd, which is totally inconsistent with the values that you seek to inculcate in them at home. So bear that in mind. Bear in mind as parents, your child under 18 has no capacity to enter into contract with anybody at all. So you can't send the child to school to sign for the books, the rental books. You can't send the child to school to sign over the younger brother who in kindergarten or grade 1 to carry home. You can't have the child at your home put the light bill in his or her name simply because you have a bad record with JPS. It can't work. And you can't go borrow and co-borrow and get a loan with the child's name as part of the borrow. It can't work. Because if you're under 18, you can't contract. Anybody is foolish enough to go and have your sign, the little child, the under 18 sign the contract, but the law does not recognize that contract. It's of no effect at all. It's as if it never happened. Bear that in mind. Similarly,
Yes, sir.
sorry, go ahead.
Yes. You was just saying that when the child leave home, he's no angel with halo over them head.
Hello,
And
So
you-
sometimes, I'm not saying generally,
yes,
sometimes.
Yes, sometimes. I'm not classifying everybody as the same.
Yes.
But you raise a statement here now where I can't understand it. You understand? Because, I mean, you have your little 12-year-old child. You have your little domestic work, you go out and do it, and, you know, you try to send that child to school. And when that person go to school now, him mix up in some gang or something, and go out and kill somebody, and then they come take me now with my tired self now. They come carry a jail.
But they won't lock you up for jail. They won't lock you up for jail. Let me, I
They
think,
don't lock me up.
no, they won't lock you up for jail. Let me tell you how that will happen. I probably say it too general. Now, if a child goes out and commit murder, by the way, if the child is under 12, settle that, they can't charge him. So we get that out of the way, right? If the child is over 12 but under 18 and commit murder, the child can be tried for the offense. If the child is under 12, they call you in because you will be liable for guilty of offense of having a child in need of care and protection, not the murder. Because the ingredients of murder, they couldn't visit it upon you. So it'll be less offense. The most they can give you is 6 months in prison.
Me?
No, they won't give you. $500,000 or 6 months or both.
I think that is unreasonable, that is unfair. I mean, the time that we are living in now, this dispensation that we are living in now, I think that is ridiculous.
It's not ridiculous, you know. That's what the law says, because I tell you something. There are many parents, like for example, Brother Deere told us, the adults who sit down by Fairview and by Kentucky and send the children out to beg.
Well,
It's parents like those who let the child run free, roam free, who they pass that law for. By the way, you know that there are some households in which when the child leaves out to go to school in the morning, the parents don't see that child again until at night come in khaki clothes or uniform and never ask the child, how come you come home so late? And on Saturdays, when the child have breakfast and leave and hit street in the morning, come back in after 12 in the night, and the parents ask the child no question at all. You know that there are households like that?
yes.
There are
yes,
households
but-
in which the child, the parents are there, and the child is actually growing himself. The mother's a party animal. Every night, she can't live without party. Put on all sorts of skimpy clothes, and hit the party track. The man out on the road, I play domino, or is a shatter, or I'm making spliff, and I roll with him, brethren them. And the child is basically functioning on his or her own. There are households like that in Jamaica. Right now, than you and I speak.
Yes, they are, yes. But what I am saying, something like that, and the child go out and get himself in problem, they should have investigate the parents, the mother, maybe it's a single mother or a single father. Right, they should have investigate them then, call the neighbor them and say how them people here live or whatever the situation may be, you know? Because sometimes the people them definitely don't know say they pick the bad.
That's true. That's true. But they do it, but guess what they do now, sister? They only do that investigation when the child is charged before the court. They have what is called a social inquiry report, and it's about that time they do this long 7-page document of foolscap paper, telling everything about the child brought up, the parent, the home condition. By then it's too late because the child committed a serious crime already. While everybody in the community knows that Mr. Jones or Mr. Joe have like a 14-year-old boy, 15-year-old boy whom can't control. He's a top shotter, a top man in a gang. No have a 17-year-old boy who walk around with a gun on him hip, almost like when walk around with the deodorant on their arm. They know that. They know if a 16-year-old is a chopper, I drive 3 Mark X and roll with the biggest notch them in the area. And everybody know that. But we say, man, I say nothing here because next thing can't shoot me. Some sharp die, that's why we are here. Everybody knows. Let me tell you something, you see. You see the way our criminal, the criminal ecosystem now goes on in Jamaica? Almost every murder, people know who. Every big shooting go on, people know who. In Kingston, you have some little small body, 16 or 15-year-old boy, who walk with the biggest gun. When you put the AK to stand up beside him, the most of the AK almost as tall as his head. And that them walk with. And they don't know the value of life. They not think twice about popping off on you. Because the big hardback man, while he might want a $1 million if he could do a hit, the little 14 or 16-year-old boy, all he would take is $100,000. Because it's probably his first him seeing so much money. And him not value life. He not think twice. In many occasions, they all end up killing the wrong person. So it's a reality that confronts us. It's a reality which we can't ignore. And that is why as parents, it is so important that you keep talking to your children, have your children around. Now make a boy go out. You have the 16-year-old coming in the house and gone to come in till midnight. Where you did there? Or me down on the road at line with my friend them. No man, he called for a bigger explanation on that. How you all rally with your friend every night, so them your friend here who? What not do? You need to know more about your children. Because look, the police alone can't do it, you know. Parents have a role to play. The community has a role to play. Too many times we adopt this thing of see I'm blind, hear and deaf. See I'm blind, hear and deaf, and then all are we dead because we see I'm blind, hear and deaf. We're dead, blind and deaf. You have a question or a comment?
Okay, under the law, based on what is happening in our schools these days, what happens to a 12-year-old who has a problem with his or her schoolmate, and that child go break a bottle, come stab the other one, and the child die? What happens to that child?
The child is charged with murder. Remember, say a 12-year-old, under 12.
Under 12.
Can't charge for anything at all.
So what happened? What happened in a case like that?
What happened? Of course, the child is going to remove from the parent because clears that child out of control. The child now becomes a ward of the state. The parent can sue the school who was responsible for the child, the deceased child, for the wrongful death. Can also sue you as the parent because you caused a violent little demon, a violent little monster to be mixing up with the people's children. But the child under 12 can't be visited with any criminal liability. Just bear in mind, the child is going to be removed from you as a parent and become a ward of the state. Why? Did you say why? No, I didn't say why. Yeah, because that's how it is. It's clear, the fact that the child is sufficiently moved, that a difference with another child can break a buckle and stab the other child, suggests that the child is out of control of the guardian, or the guardian who exercises jurisdiction over her is not capable enough to inculcate in him or her values sufficient to say, you can't take a bottle and stab another child. And by the way, when your child is involved in a conflict with another child, don't go to school and beat off, try to fight teacher, or try the other parent. It won't work because you are going to lose. You might win the fight, but you are going to be charged for assault. And if you lose the fight, the parent beat you up, you're still going to be charged for assault because you're trespassing in the school compound, go fight teacher. But these are the realities we have to live with. It happens. There are some schools which the parents say, me not send for my picnic go there. And me say too about some school. Because those schools are really battleground. That's what they really are. Some parents treat this school, as a glorified creche daycare center. Get him out of the house from 7 o'clock in the morning until 5 o'clock. Get him away. Can't deal with him. Once the parents adopt that approach, you're actually cultivating a little monster. That's what you are doing. Parent is a full-time responsibility for which you do not have a manual. On-the-job training, but guess what? Because you here, who are good people and have had good values communicated or inculcated in you by your parents or your foreparents, you are now expected to communicate or inculcate those values in your children. And by doing so, those children come up with those values and can pass it on. It is a cycle, and only we as parents can break it. Teachers have a role to play, but the teacher, you can't transfer your parental responsibility onto the teacher. The teacher might have a classroom with 30, I talk about 30 different characters, 30 different personalities, and she has 8 hours to deal with them. The teacher can't raise your child or your children. Bear that in mind. Yes.
So, Mr. Mackenzie,
Yes, ma'am.
how long does the state keep that child? Will I not see my child again? How long does the state keep that under 12-year-old that commits that
Let me
crime?
answer you this way. The first thing is the state can keep that child and the child becomes an adult and you have no contact with the child again. But out of the...
Even because the child being in state care, I would assume or imagine that the child is being rehabilitated.
Oh yes, and that's I'm going to the
Yes.
next point. And
So-
part of the rehabilitative process is to allow parental visits to the child. But the real thing is, the facts is, to answer your question, they can take a child from you permanently. Yes. But they don't normally do that. They allow parental visit after a certain time. And then they have counseling with you, the parents. Because clearly, the fact that the child could kill another one is suggestive of some lack of parental control, lack of inculcation of values at home. Yes? Yeah, we were on things that the child can do and cannot do. In real estate business, real estate, you're buying house, you're buying land, you can put the child name on the title when you get it, but the child can't sign the contract or the sale agreement or the agreement for sale with you because that's not a valid contract. So having got the land, you can put your child name on it, but if you put the child name on it, the law says you hold the child's interest upon trust and you are the trustee. So you can't sell that land unless you get an order from the court protecting the child's interest. You can't use that land as a security to get a loan unless you get an order from the court as trustee giving you permission to put that child's interest in a mortgage. You see the point I'm making? So these are some of the things that you have to bear in mind as parents. There are many more. Now, parents understand that the child can marry at 16, not under 16, 16 and above, with parental consent. Paramount, father. If there's no father, a mother. But the child can get married once the child is 16 with your consent. Remember in the beginning, I said to you, that's one of the things you need to sit down. These two persons who are going to be coming to you next 18 months, vying for your affection and your vote, and telling me you want change. Now, marriage in Jamaica, the law recognizes one man to one woman. Nothing more, nothing less. And remember, the minister of religion, who is a marriage officer, cannot be compelled to preside over a marriage ceremony if what is taking place in the ceremony is contrary to the rules of his religious denomination. And the example I always use is the example from the Indian subcontinent, where they can marry off young girls to grown men. You see, it is an accepted part of their culture. See, an Indian family comes out here, fully imbued with their culture, and they want to solemnize a marriage. In Jamaica, in our culture, the pastor can declare and decree, nope, not in my church, not under my watch, not under my jurisdiction, go elsewhere. You can marry to a 13-year-old, and nobody can force the pastor or the marriage officer to take part in those proceedings. Similarly, I can tell you that if that was a marriage carried out in India, when the child and that husband comes here, the law does not recognize it. And if he seeks to consummate that marriage in our jurisdiction, that becomes sexual offense with a person under the age of 16. And he can find his Indian culture self running afoul of our law and be locked up. Some things you bear in mind. Now, when you're married as an adult, there are times when the marriage goes south and things are not going to work out. And you go for what you call a dissolution of marriage. The party who thinks that it can't work out files in court a petition for a dissolution of marriage, that is, dissolving the marriage. There are some rules as adults which you must understand, that if there are children of the marriage takes precedence. The court is not going to dissolve that marriage until the court is satisfied that there's adequate arrangements for the maintenance and upbringing of that child. And the two parties to the marriage, the wife who is filing divorce or the husband who is filing divorce on the other side, have to agree on a document on how the child is going to be maintained and brought up until the child hits 18 years old. Remember, I told you that it can go beyond 18. If in a case like that, there's a child of the marriage who, at the time the party puts the petition before the court for dissolution, that child is over 18, under 21, and in a tertiary educational institution, then the law regards that child, 19, 20, 21, as a relevant child of the marriage, and the same requirements that would be required to be satisfied for the under 18 when the two parties are parting ways will have to be put in place for that child who is in the tertiary educational institution. And no divorce, no dissolution of marriage is going to be granted unless the court is so satisfied. Now, as adults understand that in Jamaica, before you can petition the court for a dissolution of marriage, you would have had to be married for at least 2 years before the date you put in that petition, you file that petition in court. If you're just married 18 months ago, you can file for a petition for divorce, for dissolution of marriage. You can file for something else. I can talk about what that something else might be. Similarly, you can put in your petition for dissolution of marriage unless you have been separated for at least 1 year before you file your petition. And by the way, you can be separated and living in the same roof, but it's separation. So for example, you and the woman, things go south, none of you can run, go to court. Oh, last month he moved out for me, I file. Court laugh you out. In fact, you won't even see the light of day. You have to be separated at least a year before. And you might ask, how knows? Because the petition that you put in seeking the dissolution of marriage will have to assert all these things. The date you're married, the date when you're separated, what caused the marriage to be broken irretrievably, and one whole host of things. And like I said earlier, if they are children of the marriage, then the agreement will have to be put in place. And by the way, children of the marriage includes adopted children. And if the children of marriage also include children which are not necessarily biological children of both parties. So if you're married to the woman and the woman had two children before, or a child, similarly the man had children before, and you come together as a family and accept these children as children of the marriage under the law when a divorce comes. If and when it comes, the same requirements go for them. You can back out on the basis. No one of my child may take them up with one picking them, or may pick up with their whole host of picking them. No, it doesn't work that way. So, children of a marriage are children who are biologically of both parties, or child or children of one party who has been accepted by the other party as part of the family. Now remember, we talk about petition for dissolution of marriage. There's what is called a petition for the nullity of marriage. Nullify means the marriage never happened. And there are several ways, or several bases, if you want to call it that, upon which a party to a marriage can seek to have it nullified. I put up some on the board, I don't know if it, in the chat screen, I don't know if you can read it. First of all, if one of the party, unknown to the other, has a surviving spouse at the time of the marriage. So for example, this man come all the way from St. Thomas, come to Westmoreland, meet a woman, love her, have him wife back in St. Thomas, even though man are separated and not have done nothing, and decide to meet this woman, them go on her hand, and not tell the woman nothing, same having a woman back in St. Thomas or Portland, and go through the ceremony of marriage. Not tell the marriage officer nothing at all, and then married. If 6 months down the road, 6 years down the road, whatever, the woman finds, say, but you have a wife or survive at the time when you're married, she can go to court to nullify that marriage. The difference between the nullification and the dissolution is that the nullification, when it comes, say that there was never a marriage. In other words, nullify, it never happened. While dissolution, say the marriage happened, but it break down, it nullified, the two parties can them separate way. And another document that says, marital status, widowed, single, divorce, or married. If the marriage is nullified, you're not a widow or you're not a divorce. You've never been married. So technically you are single. That's the difference. The marriage can also be nullified if in a case where consent is required. Say you have a 17-year-old daughter and you give her consent. It turned out that there was no consent. Because the consent has to be written, you know, and the marriage officer has to see it. There was no consent. Then the parent of that 17-year-old can go to court and nullify it. It can also be nullified where one party is mistaken as to the identity of the other. You think you're married to Susan, you take a stock, it's not Susan you're married to, it's actually Jane. Susan and Jane look alike, they live in the same district. Are you married to Jane? That can be nullified. Or if you don't understand that the proceedings that you're going into is actually a marriage ceremony, the man carried there, he's going to go for a nice outing, you're going to meet his brethren and the pastor, and then like a church service, you have to sign a document. It might sound comical, but it's happened in the past. When a woman signed this out, but we never know say I married a man married to me. You go to church. If a set of proceedings turn out to be like that, where the party doesn't understand the nature of the process, then that so-called marriage can be nullified. Also, if a party is not mentally capable of giving consent, the woman or the man don't have the mental capacity to understand what's going on, and the marriage ceremony goes through, then that too can be nullified. And probably most dominant one, which we may see nowadays in Jamaica more and more, is if it turns out that the two parties are of the same sex. And you might see somebody roll your head and white out your eyes, but it can happen based on what's going on now. Because we hear that about trans man, trans woman, trans this, trans that, and you have some men nowadays who want to be women, and hard to tell by just looking at them that they're not a woman. Hard. You have everything. You have the hairstyle, you have the bust, you have the waistline, you wear the high boot, you wear the eyeshadow, the Q-tex and everything, and the face and the lip pretty up and everything. You can't tell unless other biological features come into play. So if it turns out that you as a man married a man, or you as a woman married a woman, that marriage is a nullity. Completely. It happens so the way things go nowadays, you don't reach nullity, it's kill it. Because when one party find out him kill the other. By the way, there's no such word as kill it. I just made that up. Right? So, as adults, understand that. And these are things you tell your children. Don't think that they don't know. Because the moment they have that like a computer in their hand called cell phone, they know many, many things more than you and I know in our lifetime of 50 odd years. Right? So understand that. Now, that aside, there are some other things that as parent I want to share with you when it comes to some type of crime, which sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Before you change the subject, I want to explain the bigamy part where the man charged with bigamy.
Okay, all right. And I know you say man, but woman can charge with bigamy too. All right. Now, the Constitution recognizes one man, one woman. Fundamental law. The law also provides that if you enter into a ceremony of marriage, knowing at the time of doing so that you are already married and your spouse is alive, you would have committed an offense called bigamy. Bigamy aside, the other party who finds out can go to court and apply for a decree of nullity and nullify the marriage. So your marriage is nullified, she gone free, or the other party gone free. Now the criminal law knock on your door. Hello, my lord, sir. Come with us, you're charged for bigamy. Because you're married when you're already married. That attracts prison sentence or a fine. It is not one of those, I don't think the sentence reaches as much as 20 years. I think the most is about 7 years or a fine or both. And that's bigamy. It is triable in the circuit court, not in the magistrate's court, as they now call it, parish court. You go before a jury. It's the easiest offense to prove. All you need to prove it, get the last woman or the last party we are married to come and say, look, see the marriage certificate, I'm married to him on such and such a date. And then you go registrar general and get the marriage certificate of the earlier marriage if you can't find the person we married to or if the person is dead. But understand this dead thing, you know. If at the time you go into the second marriage, the person was alive, you commit bigamy. But if the person dies after that, it doesn't mean that you didn't commit the bigamy because the offense was already committed. It just means that that person can't come and give the evidence so you get the marriage certificate. So, two issues, sorry, let me just finish the point. Custos. Two issues arise out of that. A, for the second marriage, the party goes and gets it nullified. Go about the business, that's done. You, the offending party who married before now, have the police come knock you up and you answer a criminal charge of bigamy. Custos.
It doesn't matter whether the other party is alive or not. So long as you can get that marriage certificate, that's what you need. And from knowledge, once you get that, the man ducks. In fact, he will run away. But once you have the certificate, you're free to do the application.
It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that the time you enter the second marriage, the first marriage part will have to be surviving. They can't date any time. If the person dies any time after that, it doesn't matter. That's what the criminal law says. However, let me enter a little caveat here. You can...
If a marriage officer follows the current law and policies, you won't fall in the trap of the trans this and trans that. Because in Jamaica,
say it.
All our birth certificates state male or female.
One gender.
And the present policy is that you must require the birth certificate of both parties because you now have to keep a file on every couple that you marry.
Thank you,
the
sir.
challenge is, though, after last year, this year, oh yeah, but if you get the outside birth certificate, it will tell you whether it's, because they have some things now that the gender is no longer there.
Thank you very much.
So you have to be careful.
And there's a move afoot now to have, before I go to that, you notice most forms you sign now that require gender, you see, male, female, other, and below, specify or explain. Part of the move afoot now is there people talk about, I'm not binary. Binary means two, I'm not either or either, I'm not male or female. So if people have it their way, you may find birth certificate with nothing on it. I have some names nowadays. Look at people stay there and make it up. You can't tell from the name that is a male or a female. Sometimes you hear the name Lester, you know he's a man. Dennis, you hear Mary, Jane. Some of these new psychedelic names now, even if you think about it, you can't even, in fact, some of them are, anybody can name them, but male or females have them. So bear that in mind. Let me just tell you a little thing here though. There's in law a presumption of death. If, for example, all right, like, this is current now, the people that will go visit the Titanic 2.5 miles down the bottom of the ocean. Now, them dead and gone, you now find no body to bury. In that case, there's what you call a presumption of death. And the common law, when it's a common law, the law when you write in a book, things that have developed over hundreds of years, the common law presumption is that if your spouse departs from you and you have not seen him or her continuously for 7 years from the date of that departure, and persons who in the normal course of life would have seen and interacted with him, and none of those persons have seen or interacted with him, and can't say anything about him, the law presumes after 7 years that he's dead, and you can marry again, and you're not bigamous. See the point? It's called a common law presumption of death. But no marriage officer can tell you is going to take that chance. The marriage officer say, get the medical certificate.
Certainly not me.
Good, and bring it come. Because the way how things go nowadays, you cannot see a man or woman for all 20, 30 years and nobody not see him. And a couple of years after, him turn back up alive and kicking. So while there's a presumption of death there, it is not a safe way to go when you decide to get married again. So we move on now to some criminal offenses and some criminal matters which may touch and concern you as parents and which you probably should talk to your sons about. Now, we have more choppers in this parish and in this county than we have in Kingston or anywhere else in Jamaica. Take it from me. Can't tell you that. Now, yeah, man, me doing it now. Make my last slide. Yeah, I'm actually doing that now on the last slide. Tell your son and your daughter that if they are caught with any device or data designed or adapted to access any computer unlawfully, if they are accessing any computer or data unlawfully, if they are obtaining unauthorized access to any computer, they are guilty of an offense under the cyber crimes law, and the penalty for that starts at the lowest $3 million or 3 months imprisonment, and you can go to a maximum of 15 years if you go to the circuit court. Bear that in mind. I don't say daughters are not choppers too, but sons are, and your sons, the company they roll in, you may not know. But if you find him in a car with that gadget or device in the car, those documents in the car, until the police can establish who is the owner, then all of them is going to be scooped up together and all of them will be held liable. Now, there are some changes that are coming in the law, and I need to tell them to you. Now, if your child is convicted of murder, they are going to change, or they want to change a Provisional Child Care and Protection Act to make the minimum sentence be 20 years for the child. 20 years. Remember, not below 12 years, because 12 we say they can't commit a crime. Anybody above 12 up to 18, minimum 20 years. That is far advanced in Parliament now. It's now a bill before a committee in Parliament considering it. And for the grown adults, the 30 years minimum, they now consider moving to 50 years. So if your husband, your big brother or your son reach the age of 50 and they charge him for murder and this law pass, that's where he's going. You're not going to see him again. And if he's dead in prison, you get a shoulder box and prison bury him. You may be lucky if you're invited to the funeral. Of course, you can visit him while he's in prison, but bear in mind, that is where the law is heading. Your child, and if the people have their way, is going to go to 20 for the child and 50 for the adult. I think I've bored you enough. Thank you very much for listening to me. Ladies and gentlemen, there's more I can tell you. Time does not allow us. Oh, sorry. Question. You want a mic? Your mic here.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just playing the devil's advocate a little. Will there be enough prisons to accommodate all the persons who are to go there, both children and adults?
Even right now, we don't have enough, because the two top prisons were built from slavery days. St. Catherine was built to contain, I think, 650. They have over 1,000 there now. General Penitentiary, the one of my, the one in Kingston, built to contain 700. They have nearly 1,700 there now. So there will not be enough prisons to contain everybody. Sorry? I don't know what to do with them. But you have a question?
So it's not really a question.
Comment, that's all right.
It's an observation and again a concern.
Yeah.
I am concerned about our Jamaican children. As an educator, I think I've seen many things and I can write many, many books.
Yes.
One of the things that is happening is that children are now having sex publicly. They're no longer afraid, even in the primary school, to defend their partners. Children are vaping. Children are having access to liquor
Drugs?
and drugs freely. There's this new thing they call Molly or something like that.
Molly. A Molly
Yes.
drug.
They are all exposed to those stuff. If we're talking about children being under the age of 18, we're talking about primary and high school children. So something is just wrong somewhere. And our children in school, a number of them are what you call out of control. I am blessed because I'm one of those teachers who gain their respect. But there are some teachers who can't talk to any of these children at all. They threaten them. They use anything before the children. And I think one of the things that is lacking too is that the children do not go Sunday school or Sabbath school as we were grown up doing. But I have a concern, and I think some laws be put in place which have it harder to access these drugs. Children go into supermarket and they buy the liquor, the boom, the whatever their name is, and they drink freely. So, sir, that's really my concern. And I think the government needs to look into the schools and see what's happening there and try to do something with our children.
Valid point, I agree with you. That decadent society, part of the reason is that children are having children, and these children at 31 will become grandmothers, at early 30s will become grandparents themselves. They're actually children too, and they start a cycle, and they are prone to go to school or fight off teacher for them children can't run.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Yes, sir.
My thing about, I think our leaders from head and the departments that govern our children, I think they all feel our children.
They did what?
Feel our children.
Oh, fail, yeah.
To protect them and
Yeah.
safety and all of that.
Yeah.
Because as a person in the public transportation system, if you check the abuse, because even the buses that transport some of our children, with what going on in them, I call it abuse. Because it's adult driving the bus, adult conductor.
Exactly.
And the children left at their mercies. No one govern it. The police, they pass the police daily on the road with the music in the bus and all of that. I can see bike man with their children going to school in the morning, sit on the tank like all a kindergarten child. No police to stop that child endangerment. You understand? So I think all those people, they just put laws, they just need to put some laws in place, what effective laws that to make people just do the right thing. You know?
You're right on that.
Yeah.
You're right.
That's so abuse.
We can't afford as parents to abdicate our responsibilities though in the face of that. We shall have to keep trying, And you know, one of the things that is most offensive, we say it here, is parents who cuss off teacher in the school. It happens so often. And parents, I know of a lady, this is a particular example. She has a boy, grown boy, and he went to school. When he reached puberty, the growth spurt shot up, so he became a tall young fellow. And he's going to a school called in northern rural St. And it was reported that the fellow used a knife and held up a smaller boy in the school and robbed him of $500. Whether or not it's true or false, but the parents' first and instantaneous reaction was to lie them and tell upon him. The teacher takes it and the teacher don't like him. You see how toxic that position can be? So right away already, if he did it, he has parental support right back from home to show him up. If he didn't do it, it is not a balanced view from the parents. Let us look at this. Let us see what the younger boy report if it's true. But that's just an example of one of the ways in which we as parents perpetuate this thing of the decadence that obtains in school and the violence that obtains in school. And we have to break the cycle. Like I say,